Hello everyone, this is Comendador from Tutorials Dojo. I recently took the new AWS SysOps Administrator Associate Beta exam, which features a combination of multiple choice and multiple response questions and a new component called the Exam Labs. The beta exam is open from February 16 to March 26, 2021. If you don't want to go for the beta exam, the updated version SOA-C02 will generally be available in the third quarter of 2021. So what's new? The exam I took consisted of 54 questions, followed by 3 practical exam labs, which determined 23% of my exam score. And you have to finish the exam in 225 minutes. There were a couple of questions that were familiar at first glance. The ones that are most notable are topics on monitoring and logging, setting up IAM permissions and credentials, data encryption for different AWS services, storage service features, VPCs, hybrid networks, DNS records, and CloudFormation. There are questions too that assess your understanding of Elasticsearch topology and architecture. In addition, I particularly noticed that there are no questions related to Classic Load Balancer in the new exam. Once you are done answering the questions, you will be prompted to proceed with the exam labs. Take note that you will not be allowed to go back and revise your answers once you start the exam labs. So you have to make sure that you are done reviewing your answers before you decide to take the next part of the exam. AWS recommends spending 20 minutes per exam lab scenario. Since there are 3 scenarios, this means that you need to allocate 1 hour towards the end of the exam in order to finish all the exam lab scenarios completely. I was quite thrilled to check out the exam labs. This is the first time AWS is adding a hands-on component to their certification exams, and I believe this will soon be implemented in other AWS certification exams. The exam labs add an extra dimension to the exam. This will make sure that you are no longer just familiar with cloud concepts, but are also adept in troubleshooting and building solutions using the AWS Management Console or the AWS Command Line interface. Each exam lab is composed of a set of tasks that you need to accomplish in order to configure the exam lab scenario correctly. The selected topics for the exam labs were interesting, like updating a CloudFormation stack, creating a custom metric filter and alarm, and setting up a VPC network. From my experience, the recommended time of 20 minutes is adequate enough to complete the scenario and still review your work. But I had to be careful because during the exam labs portion, I was closely monitoring the remaining time and got called out 3 times by the proctor for doing suspicious eye movements. I decided to lessen the frequency of checking the remaining time while doing the exam labs. I still do think that the interface for the exam labs needs some work. The lab environment does not fit the size of the application screen automatically. I had a problem viewing the top part of the browser inside the lab environment. I tried to minimize the browser, but instead, it concealed the top portion of the browser and made it inaccessible. It took me a significant amount of time to find a solution by using the scroll bar of the exam application screen, which scrolled the lab environment, and it then allowed me to see the top part of the browser. Overall, I felt like the exam lab experience was quite manageable. The scenarios were not particularly difficult since the task can be accomplished via the AWS Management Console. Now, you might wonder which exam version should you take. The current exam version, SOA-C01, will still be available until the new exam version is released in the third quarter of 2021. If you are planning to take the exam, we recommend that you take the current version for now while it's still available. There is no difference between earning certification for the current exam versus getting it after taking the new exam version. But if you're looking to explore the new format, you can then check out the beta version. I believe the new format will elevate the value of an AWS SysOps administrator. In the new exam, you are no longer just tested for theoretical knowledge. You will also be assessed if you have the hands-on skill set that is required from a SysOps administrator. If you are reviewing for the SysOps exam, you can check out our AWS Certified SysOps Administrator Associate Practice Exams in the Tutorials Dojo portal. Our practice tests are always kept up to date and relevant to the current versions of the exams, and we have a 98% passing rate from over 200,000 enrollments. The link can be found in the description below. That is all, Cloud Experts. Comment below if you have questions. Thanks again, and see you next time.
If you want to learn more on how to book and take your AWS certification exam online or other AWS services, head on to our library of AWS cheat sheets on the Tutorials Dojo website. You can find the link in the description section below. And if you're preparing for your AWS exams, we recommend that you work on practice exams to increase your chances of passing the real test. Tutorials Dojo is well regarded to have the best AWS practice exams in the market. Visit the Tutorials Dojo portal to see our list of AWS practice test courses and reviewers. Once again, you can find the link in the description section below. Thank you for watching. If you like this video, don't forget to click the subscribe button and click on the bell icon so you'll get notified whenever we release new YouTube videos. See ya!